Eventually, a line was going to be drawn. Eventually, a line would be drawn. Considering what's already come out, there's no telling how many dumb things. I saw this comment and just shook my head. I said, you got to be kidding. I just shook my head. I couldn't believe it. So now, Nafisa Collier and Nneka Ogwumike are now channeling Caitlin Clark. The thought process tells me they have no idea what's going on. I am baffled by how dumb these players are.
That reaction right there, that's the sound of someone watching a car crash in slow motion. And what you're about to hear might be the single most economically illiterate statement ever made by a professional athlete during contract negotiations. We're talking about a comment so disconnected from reality that it could actually threaten the WNBA's most important season in history. The season Caitlin Clark built. The season that finally brought eyes, money, and momentum to a league that's been bleeding cash for nearly 3 decades. Midnight struck on January 14th, 2025. The CBA negotiation deadline wasn't symbolic. It was final. At 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, the window closed. No handshake, no quiet understanding, just two sides staring at each other across an economic chasm that might swallow this entire league. And sitting right in the middle of that divide is one quote from WNBA President Nneka Ogwumike that tells you everything you need to know about why these negotiations collapsed. Here's what she said during an ESPN interview, looking straight into the camera without hesitation. The league and teams saying that they're losing money is like saying their pockets are empty, while you're also holding the keys to a brand new Ferrari. If you believe the story behind the story matters, if you think understanding the business side of sports is just as important as what happens on the court, hit that like button right now. It tells us you're ready for the real conversation, not the sanitized PR version. Let's break down what just happened here. Nneka Ogwumike just accused WNBA owners of lying about financial losses by pointing at their personal wealth. She's looking at Mark Davis, who owns the Las Vegas Aces and the NFL's Raiders. She's looking at Joe Tsai, who owns the New York Liberty and co-founded Alibaba. She sees the jets, the estates, the luxury lifestyle, and yes, the Ferraris. And from there, she's drawing a straight line from their private bank accounts to WNBA player salaries. The message underneath is brutally simple. You're rich, so pay me more. And that's where the entire foundation of this argument crumbles. Because Mark Davis didn't buy that Ferrari with profits from the Las Vegas Aces. He bought it with money from the Raiders, an NFL franchise that prints cash. Joe Tsai's wealth didn't come from the New York Liberty. It came from building one of the world's largest tech companies. These owners are rich because of their other businesses. They're rich despite the WNBA, not because of it. Here's the part that should worry everyone who wants this league to survive. For almost 30 years, ownership groups have been subsidizing a league that consistently loses money. This isn't speculation. This is documented reality. Reports from last season showed the WNBA losing roughly $40 million. $40 million. And owners weren't just frustrated about it, they were publicly saying they're tired of covering these losses year after year. When an owner pulls up to a league meeting in a Ferrari, while the business itself is bleeding cash, it doesn't mean there's hidden profit being stashed away somewhere. It means that owner is personally covering the losses to keep the lights on. This is the Ferrari fallacy playing out in real time. The assumption that because an investor is wealthy, the investment must be thriving. You've been connecting these dots for weeks in the comments. Many of you saw this coming the moment revenue-sharing demands hit 30% of gross revenue. You were right to be skeptical, because demanding a bigger cut from a business that's already underwater just because the owner has money elsewhere, that logic collapses immediately. Think about it this way. Imagine working at a struggling restaurant location and deciding you deserve a raise because the owner also runs a profitable real estate company on the side. That extra money doesn't come from the restaurant. The restaurant's balance sheet is what it is, regardless of what the owner does with other ventures. Labor negotiations are based on the business in front of you, not whatever profit someone generates elsewhere. That line keeps getting blurred by the Players Association, and it's causing serious damage to these negotiations. There's no secret vault of cash sitting in a league office somewhere. The WNBA itself isn't sitting on piles of money. The league's financial reality doesn't change because Mark Davis owns an NFL team or Joe Tsai built a tech empire. And here's where the ESPN interview becomes even more revealing. Sitting through that conversation with Nneka Ogwumike and Nafisa Collier was like watching two people describe a business they've never actually studied. Every answer reinforced what insiders have been quietly saying for months. The players don't fully grasp the economic structure they're operating within. That's not an insult. It's an observation. And it's becoming impossible to ignore. The disconnect goes even deeper when you look at the conflicting messages coming from union leadership. Breanna Stewart gave an interview shortly before this ESPN piece dropped, and her tone was cautiously optimistic. She talked about continuing negotiations, feeling good about progress, almost hinting at positive momentum. Then, Nneka Ogwumike sits down with ESPN and delivers the Ferrari line, basically accusing owners of lying about losses while flaunting wealth. Those are two completely different messages. One suggests collaboration and flexibility. The other suggests confrontation and distrust. And when your union president is publicly questioning the financial integrity of the people funding your entire league, you're not negotiating anymore. You're declaring war.
So this comment came from the ESPN interview, and this actually rolled out of Nneka Ogwumike's mouth. Quote, "The league and teams saying that they're losing money is like saying their pockets are empty, while you're also holding the keys to a brand new Ferrari." Now, you may be like, well, Rose, I'm sure these owners can afford Ferraris. You would probably be right. However, do you know how these owners made their money to buy said Ferrari? It wasn't with the proceeds from the WNBA. It was from the proceeds from the NBA and other business entities, including for one owner, like Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, an NFL team.
Let's filter out the noise and focus on what actually matters here. The WNBA just finished its most successful season in history. Record attendance, record viewership, massive media coverage. And why? Because one player from Iowa changed everything. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring talent to the court. She brought an audience, she brought sponsors, she brought legitimacy, she built the wave that could finally carry this league toward profitability. And instead of riding that momentum, instead of protecting the breakthrough season that's sitting right in front of them, union leadership is trying to smash the wave before it reaches shore. They're demanding immediate revenue sharing from a league that doesn't have revenue to share yet. They're pointing at owner wealth as proof of league success, when the league itself is still operating at a massive loss. This isn't about players fighting for fair compensation. That's reasonable. That's expected. This is about the timing, the strategy, and the fundamental misunderstanding of how business growth actually works. You can't negotiate profit sharing when there are no profits. You can't pull money out of a bucket that's leaking from the bottom. The new media rights deals that everyone keeps pointing to as evidence of massive incoming revenue, those haven't even been finalized yet. The projections are promising, yes, but projections aren't cash in hand. Those deals need time to materialize. The audience Caitlin Clark brought needs time to become consistent. The momentum needs time to turn into sustainable revenue streams. And here's where Caitlin Clark's voice becomes the most important in this entire debate. While union leadership is focused on squeezing immediate returns, Clark said something that cuts straight to the heart of the matter. She didn't make demands. She didn't threaten. She simply stated the obvious. We need to play, protect the momentum, let the games happen, let the audience grow. Let the revenue actually materialize before fighting over how to split it. That's business strategy. That's understanding leverage. And it's the exact opposite approach from what we're seeing from the Players Association right now. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Is the Players Association making a smart negotiation move, or are they about to fumble the biggest opportunity in WNBA history? Because this conversation is just getting started, and we want to hear your perspective on where this is really headed. The threat of a work stoppage is now very real. With the CBA deadline passed and no agreement in sight, the 2025 season sits in jeopardy. And if games are lost, if this season gets delayed or canceled, the damage could be permanent. This league finally found momentum after decades of struggling, and now it's flirting with self-destruction right when success is within reach. Think about what happens if the season doesn't start on time. The casual fans Caitlin Clark brought to the league, they disappear. The sponsors who finally saw value in WNBA partnerships, they redirect their money elsewhere. The media coverage that exploded last season, it evaporates. Momentum in sports is incredibly fragile. You can't just turn it off and expect it to restart when convenient. There are players right now who understand these consequences. Players who rely on game checks to pay bills. Players who know that missing a season doesn't just hurt salaries. It destroys off-season marketing deals, sponsorships, and visibility that may never come back. But here's the brutal reality of leverage in this situation. Ownership can afford patience. Mark Davis has the Raiders generating massive revenue. Joe Tsai has Alibaba. If the WNBA goes dormant for a year, their lifestyles don't change. Their personal wealth doesn't disappear, but for players, a lost season means lost income, lost relevance, and lost momentum that might never return. And that power dynamic is exactly what makes the Ferrari argument so dangerous. Ogwumike is focusing entirely on owner wealth, while missing the fact that owners hold all the cards when it comes to waiting this out. Players are the ones who need the league to operate. Players are the ones who have everything to lose. The irony of the Ferrari metaphor is stunning. Nneka Ogwumike thinks she's pointing at owner greed. What she's actually revealing is a fundamental misunderstanding of who holds leverage here. Owners aren't clutching hidden money. They're subsidizing losses, and have been for 3 decades. And if they decide they're done being accused of lying about finances while personally covering $40 million in annual losses, they can walk away. They have other businesses to run, other investments to manage. Players don't have that option. The WNBA is their platform, their career, their livelihood. And the player who seems to understand this better than anyone is the rookie from Iowa who just carried this league into mainstream relevance. Caitlin Clark is out here building the business in real time. She's putting people in seats. She's pulling viewers to broadcasts. She's turning attention into actual dollars. She's the spark, the driver, the revenue engine. And instead of following her lead, instead of letting the growth continue and positioning the union to negotiate from actual strength once profits exist, leadership is trying to force the issue right now. That quote is going to age poorly, because it's not just wrong on the facts, it's strategically disastrous. You cannot build negotiating leverage by publicly calling your business partners liars. You cannot demand revenue sharing from a league that's losing money and expect to be taken seriously. And you definitely can't threaten the first profitable season in league history by pushing for a work stoppage. The NBA has been crystal clear about this. Commissioner Adam Silver has stated multiple times that the revenue sharing numbers being demanded simply don't work. 30% of gross revenue doesn't work when the league is operating at a loss. The math doesn't add up, and when the math fails, eventually the checks stop clearing and the funding dries up. At some point, reality has to break through the talking points. That means fewer friendly interviews where tough questions get avoided. That means fewer sound bites that go unchallenged. That means actually understanding balance sheets instead of chasing vibes and social media applause, because avoiding hard truths doesn't build power. Understanding the business does. It's time to listen to the player who actually understands what hour it is. Caitlin Clark sees the opportunity in front of this league. She sees the wave building, and she's saying exactly what needs to be said. Let's play. Let's protect this moment. Let's build the foundation before demanding the rewards. That's not weakness. That's strategy. That's recognizing that real leverage comes from success, not from threats. You build power by making yourself indispensable, by proving value, by creating revenue that didn't exist before. You don't build power by demanding money from a bucket that's still leaking. If this path continues, if the league stays stuck in Ferrari fantasies and entitlement arguments, there's an ending coming that nobody seems ready for. That ending looks like owners quietly deciding they're done. Lights off, buildings closed, parking lots empty, and players standing there with nothing but regrets about what could have been. That's not a scare tactic. That's what happens when the people subsidizing the losses decide they're tired of being painted as villains while personally covering the bills. Mark Cuban tried to explain this during the labor disputes years ago. Ted Leonsis tried to explain it. Multiple ownership groups have tried to explain the actual financial structure of the WNBA, and every time, the response has been skepticism and accusations of dishonesty. This moment is bigger than ego. It's bigger than sound bites. It's bigger than interviews that feel empowering but solve nothing. The numbers matter, the timing matters, and ignoring both is exactly how momentum dies. You cannot negotiate with math. You cannot pressure a balance sheet into changing, and you cannot demand money that hasn't been created yet. Growth comes first. Sustainability comes second. Power comes last. Trying to reverse that order is how leagues collapse. And right now, the WNBA is standing on the edge of either its greatest breakthrough or its most catastrophic, self-inflicted wound. Caitlin Clark didn't need to say any of this loudly. She didn't need to threaten or posture. She simply pointed at the moment and said, "It matters. Play the games. Protect the momentum. Let the audience turn into revenue. Then fight for your share when there's something real to fight over." That message keeps getting ignored by union leadership, and that's the real danger here. Because history is full of leagues that mistook a breakthrough moment for guaranteed success. History is also full of players who thought they had leverage when they didn't. The WNBA is standing on its most important season ever, and the decisions made right now will echo for years. This isn't about choosing sides. This is about understanding reality, about recognizing that the Ferrari argument exposes a disconnect so severe it could derail everything, about listening to the player who built this momentum and knows exactly what's at stake. Before we close this out, if you found this breakdown valuable, if you think this perspective matters, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this video with anyone who's following the WNBA situation. Because the mainstream coverage isn't telling you this side of the story, they're giving you the sanitized version. We're giving you the business reality behind the headlines. And speaking of reality, our next video is going to break down exactly what happens if this work stoppage actually occurs. The financial consequences for players, the ripple effects across the league, and why certain veteran players might be the ones who force a resolution. You won't want to miss that. Are the players taking a necessary stand for their worth, or are they risking everything at the worst possible time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. This is where the real conversation happens. Not in carefully staged interviews, but in the space where people who actually understand business dynamics can speak freely. The WNBA's future is being decided right now, not on the court, but in negotiation rooms where economic literacy matters more than emotion. And if the Ferrari metaphor tells us anything, it's that one side understands the game being played, and the other side is still learning the rules. Let's hope they figure it out before the clock runs out entirely.